Oh, the Zoom one.
Yeah.
Cool. I have Tessa's thing open just again.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third annual California College Affordability Summit. My name is Ebony Odiar, and I will be your moderator tech for this breakout session. I'm here to provide you for virtual support for both you and the presenter during the presentation. All attendees must be muted, so we ask that you please put your questions into the chat icon or at the end of the presentation, if time allows. You may also raise your hand, and I will happily unmute you to ask a question. Should you have any questions or need any assistance with the Zoom interface, you can use the chat icon or toolbar at the bottom of the screen and search for my name and send me a direct message, and I will do my best to provide assistance to resolve your concern. It is my pleasure now to introduce you to your presenters for this titled session, which was how CCGI partner districts can use CaliforniaColleges.edu to facilitate holistic implementation of AB 469, presented by Mariana Torres, Darice Ingram, and Maya Ramos-Clayton.
Thank you, Ebony. And we're going to start out with an introduction and welcome from our colleague, Maya.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see your face, Erica, and some of your names that we know. My name is Maya Ramos-Clayton, and I'm the Chief of Staff over at the California College Guidance Initiative. Our hour today is going to be focused on AB 469 implementation for districts that we either currently have a partnership with or are in the process of developing a partnership. Want to make sure that you're in the right place. Our functionality for non-partners is very similar. So it's really up to you if you want to stay in this room, or Darice is going to add the Zoom link to the presentation that our colleagues are doing for non-partner districts. But to get started, we are really excited to share with you about our tools and lessons on CaliforniaColleges.edu that can help you really successfully implement Universal FAFSA and CADA, or AB 469. As you probably heard in the opening session, AB 469 requires LEAs to make sure that every graduating senior submits a FAFSA or CADA. And the legislation is backed by research demonstrating that filing a financial aid application is the strongest predictor of whether a student actually enrolled in a form of education after high school. And we're really excited to move this forward and to improve outcomes for California students. We're also aware and really empathetic to the fact that most school districts, including yours, probably have a limited capacity to really support students in filing their financial aid applications. And to support your efforts and your implementation of AB 469, that's why we made these new financial aid tools available on CaliforniaColleges.edu. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. So a little bit about CCGI, which I think most of you are already familiar with. We manage CaliforniaColleges.edu. We're also the foundation of the state's new Cradle to Career data system tools for students, families, and frontline educators. And right now, there are more than 800,000 students currently using the platform in well over 100 districts across the state. So what we're going to cover today, at the end, we want you to feel really confident about using the financial aid tools as the right way to support your implementation of 469. So we're going to go over how students can launch and track their FAFSA or California Dream Act applications from the platform, and how you as educators can track whether students have submitted their applications. We're also going to hear from Mariana Torres, Director of Equity and Access at Apple Valley Unified, about how she plans to use the financial aid tools. And then we're going to help you understand the steps that you need to take if you would like to use these tools for your seniors starting this fall. So, you don't need me to tell you that financial aid is a huge conversation to tackle with students, and require. And applying for it, all sorts of steps involved. So CaliforniaColleges.edu and our financial aid lessons help students really foundationally learn what financial aid is, then how they apply for financial aid, how they launch and submit their applications, and how they can secure the aid after they have submitted all of the necessary forms. So the free lessons equip your students with the information they need to determine which application is right for them. Is it the FAFSA or the CADA? It helps them kind of figure out the right questions to ask of themselves, of their families, and of you as their support system. The lessons help prepare students for the application process itself, so they're able to start and submit applications as easily as possible. And the financial aid lessons are self-guided and can be completed anywhere where the student has access to the internet. And for those of you who are working directly with students or at the district office, the platform helps you monitor your students' progress through the financial aid lessons. And it's our hope that they ease your workload as you guide students through the application process, because the reporting is going to help you identify and target the students that need extra intervention. The platform's reporting tools can also help educators identify which students have or have not submitted their GPA or Cal Grant GPA verification as well. And then finally, in addition to the financial aid lessons supporting AB 469 implementation, which is the focus of this year's summit, our 11th grade financial aid lessons also support you in fulfilling the requirements of AB 2015 as well. Okay. So, and again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, interrupt me. We want to make sure that you get what you need. So first things first, when a student launches their financial aid application from CaliforniaColleges.edu, and again, what I'm about to describe is only when a student launches from CaliforniaColleges.edu as the central one-stop starting point for them. The student's statewide student identifier, or that SSID, that's that 10-digit number, can be matched with the student's financial aid application with the California Student Aid Commission, or CSAC. So this is really important and unique value that CaliforniaColleges.edu brings. And I'm going to break it down for you. So as you know, FAFSA requires students to provide their social security number. When districts send the Cal Grant GPA verification, as you know, the SSID is provided. So we have two different identifiers to try to identify one student. This makes it difficult to connect the two key data points that CSAC uses to determine Cal Grant eligibility for your students. That is data from the FAFSA and the Cal Grant GPA that districts provide. So launching FAFSA from CaliforniaColleges.edu links that FAFSA launch for the student to their SSID, and we share that information with CSAC. And so this helps match the FAFSA and the Cal Grant GPA for some of the harder to match students. For instance, imagine students with multiple last names, which is obviously not uncommon in California. These types of name conventions are not consistently accommodated in the FAFSA. Thus, a student may input a different last name in the FAFSA than the name associated with their SSID in your student information system. So by linking the FAFSA to their SSID, it decreases the likelihood that there's going to be a mismatch between the information that CSAC has and the information that FAFSA has. There's a lot of information. Any questions before we move on? No? Okay. Yuri's passing it on to you. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so as you see on the screen, students can start their financial aid journey with CaliforniaColleges.edu as early as the 6th grade. New modules become available to students as they progress through high school. In the 6th through the 10th grade, students get an introduction to financial aid and learn about college costs. In their junior year, it just builds, and in their junior year, they'll get a deeper understanding of really how financial aid works, what it's like to apply, and how to figure out the real cost of college, right? This can help make all the things that a student needs to do during their senior year a lot easier for both you and for them. In the 12th grade, many of our students, as they start their senior year, our modules with CaliforniaColleges.edu expand significantly. As you can see, we'll cover how to prepare a list of the actionable items that will help our seniors do the correct application, write the FAFSA or the CADA, gather their required documents, scaffolding them into the process of filling out the actual application in order to complete their financial aid process. Most importantly, these modules really help our students understand if they should be completing the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application. Now, before we show you the tools that are available here on CaliforniaColleges.edu, we wanted to share a short video so you can see what students feel and how they use the tools in their senior year to guide and scaffold their financial aid applications.
I'm Anna Castillo. I'm in 12th grade and I am going to Heritage High School. In college, I plan to major in microbiology.
I'm Amber Flores. I'm in 12th grade and I go to Heritage High School. In college, I hope to study nursing or marine bio.
Financial aid would help me in my entire journey due to the fact that my parents and I are immigrants. We don't really have many resources, so financial aid is the reason why I'm going to college.
I use California Colleges to access all financial aid information that I needed.
The biggest value from the California Colleges financial aid lessons was just how simple it was.
I was able to view what I had to do and figure out what documents I needed.
It was very easy to follow through, especially with parents that had never navigated the financial aid process or the college process.
I was filling it out by myself at the time, and I would just have my mom go in and fill in the portion she needed.
My non-English speaking parents could understand it if I were to translate it to them, hand it over to them and explain it to them step by step, just how it was shown in California colleges.
The checklist, like, it's more helpful than you think. You go and you fill out the portions you've already completed and you're able to check them off and have all the documents ready.
It was organized in such a simple way and were thorough enough for me to understand everything clearly, and I was able to do everything on my own.
When you have to click the button to go actually fill out the FAFSA form, you already have your parents' taxes ready, your household information ready, and just everything that you need to fill out a form that might not be so simple to fill out.
Wow. Feel free to share your reactions in the chat. What we love about this video is that it's so representative of how easy and helpful it is for students and what we're hearing about the tools and how easy they are for them to fill out. Now we're going to give you a demonstration of the financial aid tools in just a moment. But before we do, we wanted to share a survey from Riverside County from students that were surveyed about using the financial aid tools. So you'll see on the screen that we surveyed 371 high school seniors who have used the tools on CaliforniaColleges.edu so we could learn about their experiences and how we help them understand and apply for financial aid. What you'll see that over 50% of the students thought it was easy to use and understand the financial aid lessons, which is one of the biggest barriers, right? Really understanding what is financial aid and how do I apply for it. For students, we asked them, it was easier to choose the right application for them. Like, how do they know if they should be using the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application? 81% of the students said that it was easier for them to choose, right? And then when we looked at, was it easier to actually complete the FAFSA and the CADA? You'll actually see how our students responded when we surveyed them. We want to make sure and help you as partners here with CaliforniaColleges.edu get similar results as you work through and start participating and planning for compliance with AB 469 and financial aid for your students. As we transition, I'm actually going to transition into doing a simple demonstration of the financial aid tools that we have here on CaliforniaColleges.edu. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat as I make that transition. And of course, it's taking a little longer to log in than we had planned. Okay, as I share my screen again, you'll see that I am logged in as a student. This is a demonstration account so that we're not sharing any live data. Once you log in as a student, I'm logged in as a 12th grade student, you'll see the bright green, my financial aid plan, right here on the screen. Once you click in to my financial aid plan, you'll actually see the financial aid lessons, and I'll go through a demonstration of how they're broken down for your students, your 12th grade students. What you'll notice here is that each section is set up by grade, and by month. So you know exactly, and a student will know exactly what to do in the month of their senior year. So we're going to start with module 1, which we encourage students to submit in the month of September. In module 1, what you'll notice is that it breaks down into different lessons. As we walk through this lesson, it shows that it's actually completed, but we're actually going to go into the first lesson to just get a sample of what a lesson looks like in the financial aid tools. What you'll notice first is the title section of, and it's preparing to complete the FAFSA or the CADA. What it also shows for educators is the approximate time of how long that lesson will take. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there's key facts listed. And inside, once you click that key facts, it actually shows, starting in September, here's a couple of key facts of that a student will need to know on how to fill out only one form. That's the first thing we want to share with our students. How to fill out. Make sure you're only filling out one form, either a FAFSA or a CADA. We can move through the lessons by clicking either introduction on the left hand or going to the next slide. I'm going to choose next slide. Inside here, it's a quick introduction for students and find out some more information and some additional key terms. What FAFSA stands for, what the CADA stands for, because students often hear this information but don't exactly know what it is. Once we move to section 3, it talks about, are you an independent or a dependent student? And this really is meant to share with students how they know if they're independent or dependent. We often get questions from students as educators, how do I know? And for here, it shares how a student is independent in special circumstances, like they're a foster youth, or they're a parent, or they're in the military. But beyond that, that they're an independent student. Excuse me. And when they're an independent student, they don't have to give their parents information. As we move on to the legal parent for FAFSA and CADA, we find that a lot of students have questions on who is my parent? What is a legal parent? So you'll see that we have some simple FAQs that a student can look at with their parents if they need to, of common scenarios of different families. So the one that we'll take a look at is, my parents are not married, but they live together. Do I need both of their information? And with that, they can click down and learn a little bit more information about the information, that they need to provide for their FAFSA or CADA application. Finally, in this section, we have seen and heard of a lot of students not understanding if they should be submitting a FAFSA or a CADA. So it gives some simple explanation of when you'll submit a FAFSA and when you'll submit a CADA. In instances of when you'll submit a CADA, you're undocumented, you have a valid or expired DACA, you have a U visa, or you have a TPS status. I do want to point out that this information, whether a student is submitting a FAFSA or a CADA, is private, so it's not shared with the educator, but the educator can track if a student has actually submitted an application, but they do not see whether that student has submitted a FAFSA or a CADA, especially for parents or students who have some concern about sharing this information. And then finally, in this section of the lesson, there's a conclusion, and it shows you that you can complete the section or complete the slides. So when we click there, I also want to show you additional lessons and resources that are available as part of our financial aid lessons. If you see here on the resource tab, these are additional resources that are available to students that they can go directly into a specific section that applies to them. If we go up a little bit further, we can also see the to-dos. And in section 2, as we review the financial aid checklist, which I'll go through in a moment, you can actually see of the 3 sections and the to-dos, what has the student completed. The student can go back and see this, and you can also see it as an educator. Excuse me. So in this section, the to-do list, have I completed all of the to-dos? Had I only completed one of the 3, the to-do would say that I completed one of the 3 to-dos. As we go into other sections of the financial aid lessons, I wanted to go into the gear icon. This is especially important for students and helpful for students that have been working on financial aid lessons, maybe from the 6th grade or starting in the 9th grade. If you wanted to see all of the lessons that a student has completed or participated in, they could click all grades and see all of the lessons that they have completed. What's also neat about this section is sharing that I'm in the plan for a 12th grade student. If I wanted to be in the 11th grade plan, I would also know that if I was in the 11th grade plan. The other section that's important here, it says that you are completing the financial aid application, that is the FAFSA. So if you're still wondering which one I should be completing, it actually tells you right here. The other section in this bright orange, it actually talks about, we talked about the FSA, excuse me, and launching the FAFSA. You can launch the FAFSA or the CADA directly from CaliforniaColleges.edu. Depending on what you filled out, the appropriate application will show up for you. So if you are a student that should be submitting a CADA or California Dream Act application, you'll be able to submit that application directly from here. What's also important, and this for my work with students, I found has been extremely important, because as counselors or college and career technicians talk about students about financial aid, oftentimes they think that, hey, I've actually submitted my application. By working through CaliforniaColleges.edu and doing the financial aid lessons through here, we can see that this student actually has not submitted their application. The last time that they launched the financial aid lessons or launched the application was on 4/14. Has their Cal Grant GPA been added or verified? The answer is no. And you can see that information right from CaliforniaColleges.edu. I promised I'd go over the checklist for reviewing your FAFSA checklist. I actually want to go into that lesson so that you can see what a student sees as they walk through that process. Again, this is about reviewing your FAFSA checklist, the topic, and the amount of time that it will take. This is helpful as you're planning lessons and the support that you need for working with students. Again, we have the key facts, the introduction, a little bit more about the content, the FAFSA, and what students need for the FAFSA, and the checklist. So in this checklist, the student will actually see through and go through and do a checklist so they can check which portions of the FAFSA or the CADA application that they have completed. It also talks more about the FSA ID and your parents' information and documents that you'll need in order to complete your FSA ID. Finally, it talks about the to-do section, which I shared a little bit earlier, of how you can go in and check which sections that you've completed. And again, ends with the completion or the conclusion of this section. I'm sure there's a few questions. I just wanted to give an opportunity. And Maya, I know you may have been answering those questions. Would you like to share a few in out loud?
The one question we had was about some practice accounts, which I said we can send as follow-up, but I also added a link in there for the general lessons overview page. You can get more info, but any other questions before we move forward though?
Yeah, I had one question actually. We tried to use this earlier in the fall with our students as we were getting all the seniors to get ready for their FAFSA. But I noticed, is there, and I might have missed it, I just wanted to make sure students still understood that FAFSA.gov is the website they can use to actually access the FAFSA. So when they leave high school and they still have to renew their FAFSA and they don't have access to CCGI, they still know the correct website to use. Is there someplace in here that does give the actual website URL link so that they understand what that site is? Like,
Yeah, so no, it's a really good point. So there is content on the platform that tells them, that gives them the federal student aid link for sure.
okay.
So that is there. We'll go back and double check in the last part of the 12th grade lesson to see what's there.
So there's that language so that, they
Yeah.
know
Oh,
exactly the
Yeah, we're
direct.
super attentive to that.
Okay.
We don't want students going to other websites. The other thing, you didn't ask this question, but I'll answer it. Students actually still do have access to CaliforniaColleges.edu after they graduate from your school. And the way that, so you won't have access to them because they're not enrolled. But the way to ensure that it can continue to be a resource is making sure that your students add that secondary email. And then they can continue to use it as a resource. Their My Plan is still there, things like that. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Other questions?
Well, seeing none, I do want to share what it looks like for an educator to go in and pull reports from the financial aid lessons. So I'm going to share my screen again and walk through what that educator would see or could see as they're pulling reports or want to see reports to do targeted intervention or targeted support to your students. So on the screen, you'll see that I have Educate. I've logged in. I'm actually going to log out and log back in into a counselor account. Again, these are demo accounts, so there's no real student data here. When you open up this page, you'll see that you are on the Educator dashboard, so you know that you're on the right page. Under here, you'll see the report management. You can also see how you can manage student accounts, the assignments, and additional resources that are available to you as an educator. We're going to click into the report management section. And for this section, there's multiple reports that you can run. But for our activities today, we're going to focus on financial aid. Inside of the financial aid reports, you can choose if you're going to look at the status of the FAFSA CADA Dream Act application for your students, or how are students progressing towards completing the modules. We're actually going to start with our first report and running the status for 12th grade students. In that report, what you'll see here is the student name, last name and first name, their local student ID, their SSID, their grade, the date that they launched CaliforniaColleges.edu, and their status. So you can actually sort this report to see if a student has launched but submitted or not submitted, they've completed but not verified, so that you can target your information and your follow-up based on the student need. Any questions about that thus far? If you wanted to drill down to a student, these are hyperlinked so that you can actually drill down into that student and connect to that student here via the platform and get more information. So let's say you wanted to see all of the students who would not launch their FAFSA or their CADA status. You can actually see that information here, and it's sorted capabilities so that you can target your intervention based on the students that have the highest need. When we go back to the reporting section, excuse me, before we go there, you can actually download this report as an Excel file or CSV file, a PDF, or print it directly from the platform. Let's say you wanted to see how students are progressing towards completing their financial aid modules. Maybe you've assigned those as part of your college and career work or as part of a classroom assignment. If we run this report, we can actually see similar setup, the status of the students. So how many students have actually started any of the financial aid lessons? You'll get the number of students and you can actually hyperlink to see which one of those students haven't started any of the lessons. For each section of the report, excuse me, here we go. For each section of the report and each one of the questions, you're able to drill down to see which students are actually have that status. So students that have not started, the 6th through 10th grade modules, students that have started at least one of the financial aid modules. So this will hopefully save time for you as a college and career counselor or an educator that's focusing on targeting and supporting your students where they are in the process, and as you're looking at how you will track your AB 469 compliance. Are there any questions about that information, about the reporting tools? Okay. Well, seeing none, we've heard from students about how financial aid tools have made the financial aid process easier for them. We've had the opportunity to review our financial aid lessons and the financial aid application integration, as well as the educator reports. Now, I'm going to share my screen again because we'd like to share with you the experience of a fellow educator like yourself and what they are saying about the use of the financial aid tools on CaliforniaColleges.edu.
I was very excited to see the financial aid lessons. This is already created. There's nothing we have to do in addition to it. It's a built-in user-friendly system.
I was able to click on it with the students. We did it together. We did those first 2 modules, which took 20 minutes. I mean, with questions and answers.
Our students often comment, that was easy. And that's really the best commentary that we could get. We want them to feel like, wow, you know what? That was every bit as smooth as I hoped it would be.
We don't have to create separate materials. There's already videos on there. And so it saves that classroom component and instruction.
The financial aid plan takes them to the steps that they can do. And the to-dos was really nice because the kids actually clicked on there. Okay, I did that. Okay, you can't click it if you haven't done it.
You're not searching around saying, okay, I got to go to this website. Let's go to FAFSA.gov. We're in one central place with all of the essential pieces and all of it linked together.
I think that's a huge benefit. The lessons are already built in and they're self-paced and it's intuitive for the student.
Everybody says it was really clear, it's to the point, that it made sense. And it was our language. It wasn't too wordy. It was specific, which made sense for the students.
The financial aid tools really support counselors and make their jobs easier by putting everything into one centralized place.
This has a lot of potential for us, especially with the FAFSA or the DREAM Act mandates that everyone has to complete.
The reports are easier too. I pull reports every week. I think it was super easy. I didn't even get trained this year.
We can run regular reports to drill down and see where our students are in the process. I can now click on a specific student and get specific information on just that one kid.
It saves counselors a lot of time, which of course is always going to be a benefit to our very, very busy site counselors.
I have 520 students in my caseload. So I have 100 and something per grade. It just made it so much easier, I'm just so glad for this because this should be happening with all students. I think there should be all districts doing this from day one, freshman year.
Wow. Maya is going to talk to you a little bit more about what is CaliforniaColleges.edu. Thank you, Maya.
Yeah. So for the final part of our presentation, we're actually going to zoom way back out. So financial aid is not in a silo, as we all know. And so we wanted to make sure that we were helping just to contextualize how these lessons fit into CaliforniaColleges.edu, the official college and career planning platform of California. So I think most of this is not new to you, but I do want to highlight it. So as you're planning for the fall, you're thinking about a holistic implementation of the use of the platform. So students have the career exploration tools that includes assessments, the major and search tools. They have these financial aid lessons. As partner districts, your students have the CSU and UC eligibility tools. Parents and guardians can also get accounts. They can see their students' activities and progress. And then we have application integrations with all of the public higher ed segments in the state. And then for you as educators, you got a glimpse of the reporting for the financial aid lessons and the financial aid applications. There's also reporting for everything else that students are doing on the platform. So it's really a one-stop shop now for you to support holistic college and career planning for students. So on the next slide, we just wanted to do a quick plug for the things that I think you all know exist. So from CaliforniaColleges.edu, students can launch CCC Apply, Cal State Apply, UC Apply, FAFSA, and CADA. And so it's really important, you know, as you're thinking about looking at the progress and trajectory for your students, when you're sending them to CaliforniaColleges.edu, it's easier for them. It's one place to go, but it also ultimately, we believe, and educators tell us, makes it easier for you because you're going to have the data to really support who are those students that you need to follow up with to ensure that they're completing their processes. So I'm going to actually transition it to Mariana Torres from Apple Valley. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She is an amazing champion of students and of CaliforniaColleges.edu. So turn it over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. Just to make sure that you know, Apple Valley is in the high desert in California. It is not Napa Valley that we always get where the wine is, but that's not actually us. And of course, you know, we had to have somebody call right at the same time. So just as we were going through this and we're listening to this, one of the real barriers that we have as educators is the fact that most of the time we're working in all of these different silos and systems. And 3 years ago, when we came to this actual first summit in Palm Springs in person, which seems like a million years ago, we really, what was so profound for me when I was listening to CaliforniaColleges.edu and looking at all of these different things, was the fact that in all these silos, like you have your student data system that holds some information. You have your CSAC that has all of the financial aid information, and then you have your college doorways that has all of that information. And we're going back and forth and having to actually pull reports and try to match data and do this, that, and the other. And what really kind of was an impact for me was that this was really the first time and the first chance that to me, it made logical sense to actually have a one place stop, to actually have a place where I could hold my students, I could have their plans, I could have their financial aid, I could have their applications. And it made logical sense that if I could get my students into this system, then some of the other pieces would become common language. They would become sort of a shared language that we could all that we could all get behind and be able to speak, parents, educators, administrators, and have the ability to understand where we were going and how to get there. So to us, that was pretty powerful.
Mariana, since you successfully implemented CaliforniaColleges.edu, what was the strategy? What tips can you give to other educators?
Well, when you say successfully, I always go back to the fact that we are all human beings and a work in progress. We're finding different ways to utilize it. Honestly, this pandemic, threw us all for a loop. If it wasn't because of California colleges, I don't even know exactly how we would have had some of these conversations, because it was timely in the sense that it gave us a platform that regardless if it was virtual or in person, we could be looking at the same information and we could be sharing some of the same things. So in that sense, it really worked out. For us, when we were in person before the pandemic, we were meeting with our counselors maybe a couple of times a semester. And I facilitated the counselors, both the elementary and the high school counselors in my district. So it became part of the conversation because we were looking at AB 215 coming in and AB 469 coming in, and we were having those natural sort of organic discussions anyways in regards to how we were going to task this. And as we were having those conversations and we had just become partners and we were looking at some of the lessons and we were looking at some of the patterns, we were like, whoa, we don't need to go out and buy something else. We don't need to go spend money in a different platform and do this, that, and the other. These are lessons that we have. These are lessons that are plotted, that are created, that you can actually look at. When we took out AB 215 and we literally put it like to the left, and then on the right we put our CCGI cohort workbook, and we looked at what those lessons were. It hit each one of the points on the law of what the kiddos needed before the 12th grade. So it was kind of a very easy sell. It was just talking through in our system on where this could actually fit in, like and who would deliver those lessons and how we would track or report who had them or didn't, and what sort of process we would have in place. So it really kind of became more of a partnership in regards to, okay, so what do we need to do to break this down so that we can make this accessible?
And where did you end up implementing it? Like, was it in a classroom setting? Was it, how did you handle that in your district?
We have tried different things. During the pandemic, we actually had every Wednesday, we had a set time that when kids were in distance learning, they sort of had a check-in piece, and we were using it during that. As we came back into our in-person or the virtual settings, we kind of went back and talked to our English teachers and partner up with our counselors so that it was not overwhelming, but so that we had that English class that every single junior has, but making it meaningful so that they could have those conversations, and the counselors also were able to be included in those conversations. Providing the opportunity for those kiddos to actually get registered beforehand. And we all know that, our career center has a piece in that. If you have a career center, our counselors have a piece in that, and making sure that they were able to log in, that they were able to have these, that we were able to assign those lessons. But more importantly, that we didn't put it on the teachers, because God knows we all have a full plate right now in regards to checking in and being able to follow up. So we really had to sort of look at it from a team approach.
Great. And then what did you find most helpful and as you're looking at planning to implement the financial aid lessons?
Well, for us, what was kind of like one of those aha moments was because if you are running reports and you are like you feel like you're chasing down kiddos, right? You're chasing down kiddos and trying to make sure that those that did not start their FAFSA, that they did not completed, that they launched but maybe they didn't do, and you're playing that game of sort of like cyclical. Hey, do you need help? Do we need to set up a meeting? Have you come to our Cash for College? Have you talked to the CalSoap coaches? And for some, she's having the opportunity to, instead of having to go to 3 different places, and if you are the one that runs those CSAC reports, you're like one person at the site. So like only this person has this information. This actually opened up the fact that all of our counselors and all of our administration could run these reports and have the information and direct some of the efforts that if we had the opportunity to have a financial aid lunch, get together and do parts of the application or do this or that, we could specifically target those students. And, the ones that are already done and completed it, then we can just say, hey, congratulations, you already took care of this, you're done. Or, hey, now what? Like, we are going to send you a special invitation so that when you get your award letter, we know that you can come in and bring your stuff so that we can talk about it together. So it really focuses our conversations with our parents and our students in a different way.
Wonderful. And you had mentioned some strategic things that you're going to do with the reporting functionality. Do you want to share that? I thought that would be beneficial for educators.
For me, I'm always thinking of FPMs, because the reality of it is that either CalPADS or FPMs, our federal program monitoring, or our CalPADS reports, are a big part of what we sort of have to do. And they don't exactly tell us how this is going to be reported. I'm sure we're going to have some kind of a training in regards to that. But, we're trying to make sure that in our system, this makes sense, and that we're able to pull reports, and that those reports, we have Aries as our data student system. And I sat with IT and I was like, okay, so like, talk to me about how I can in some way keep tabs on, when I run these reports and I know that these kiddos completed it, how can I do that? And they're like, well, if you have their SSID, and you can either do a CSV file or you can do an Excel file to start, we can designate, a spot that actually we can query and make sure that we know that all of those students have completed that, and we can keep tabs on that. And when they ask us for that report, we can pull that through. And I was like, oh, that's easy enough. That's something that's already built into the system. So for us, that's our plan as we're going to pilot this year. I don't know that that's actually how the state will go through. I am sure that after they actually ask us for the information, they'll tell us what it is that they want, because that happens a lot. But at least we have a plan, and we were able to sort of figure out where we would say, yes, this student completed a lesson before 12th grade. This is where we have it housed. Yes, this student has submitted an application, or yes, they have actually put an opt-out, and we would have a system to actually keep track of those things. So those are the things we have been working on. I would love to hear from others what they're doing, because we need to work smarter, not harder. But these are some of the conversations that we have had going on.
Thank you so much, Mariana. And if you have questions, comments, want to be a part of a planning meeting about the financial aid tools, we have virtual training that can share some information about how to go through those modules and get it set up. And Mariana is interested in hearing from all of you as well, that we can coordinate some of that information. I want to thank you, Mariana, for sharing your insights with us. We're going to drop some of Mariana's tools in the chat. She talked about a workbook that CCGI provides, as well as she has a link on her website of how she engages her parents, as well with the different grade levels that we'd love to share with you in that context as well, if that would be beneficial for you. So thanks again, Mariana. Incredible work that you're doing in Apple Valley, and appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, guys. I know that it's a big lift, and I know that we all have a full plate, and whatever it is that we can do to help anytime that we get to do this together for our students, so that this is not what keeps them away from their next steps. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So now I would love to hear from each of you or some of you in the chat if there was anything that resonated with you, if you had tips or tools of different things that you're trying in your district as we get into the next steps. But we really want to hear what stood out for you as districts are implementing and planning for this all over the state. We really want to hear and share different promising practices that you may be using or want to use or want to talk to others about. So now that you've learned more about CaliforniaColleges.edu and the financial aid tools, you've heard from students, we've heard from educators and educators like Mariana of how the tools can be used and understand, hopefully a little bit better, the impact that it can have on your district. We really want to share some of the next steps to prepare you for implementing AB 469 in your district. I'm going to drop a link in the chat that includes a checklist, excuse me, that we've created for all of our districts that we're sharing with you. As we drop that link in the chat, we really want to give some insight of what we hope to share with you as you get ready to implement AB 469. We'll send that checklist, but the first thing we want to admonish you to do is to share the information across the chat. Oh, Eric, I see that there's some concern about accessing, so we'll make sure that we'll send that out in the follow-up email as well. So we really want to have you share the information across your district. That's one of the best practices that we've heard throughout. We really want to encourage you to help your students register their accounts. Mariana mentioned 11th grade students, they walked through, got all their students registered for accounts. That's the biggest lift, getting those students actually registered for their accounts so that they can access the tools online. We want to make sure that you've registered your educator account. Maybe you have, or someone else that will be working with you has not registered their educator account. So we want to make sure that you are registering your educator account. And finally, we want to share about our virtual training sessions. At California Colleges, you don't walk through this process alone. We have an incredible virtual training team that provides a community of practice where you can actually go in, learn more about the tools, and then even take some time to actually practice what you've learned so that it implements a little bit easier for you and your partners. Since your district is already partnered with CaliforniaColleges.edu, your student accounts are created via transcript file that your district sends to CCGI. If you have questions about this, you can also reach out to us at techassistance@CaliforniaColleges.edu, and we'll direct you to the appropriate person inside your district to support you with that. However, I do really want to remind you that students will still need to register their student account if they haven't registered already. Students can even watch the video and read the guide that's linked, that we're going to link inside the checklist when they're registering their student accounts. Now, step number 3, if you've already registered your educator account, or you're not sure if you have an account, but know you need one, you can still reach out to us at techassistance@CaliforniaColleges.edu, and we'll also link a video inside of our educator account document. Last but not least, if you end up needing help through this process, we really want to share that our user support and training teams are there to help you along the way. With that, we want to encourage you to attend one of our virtual training sessions, which we'll share also in our follow-up email to you. Thank you again for attending our CaliforniaColleges.edu information session today. We hope you walked away with greater clarity about how you can use California Colleges as a concrete tool to supplement and complement your college and career counseling efforts and compliance needs. We'll open it up for any final questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mariana Torres, Doris Ingram, and Maya Ramos Clayton for sharing your expertise with all of our participants this morning. Please know that all of the presentation materials are and will be available on the SHED event platform. The recordings will also be posted on the CSAC event webpage by tomorrow. We also welcome you all to use the SCED to provide feedback so we can continue to provide you with the support you will need to implement for the upcoming application completion requirement. Have a great day.
Thanks all. It's good to see you.
Oh.